Welcome back to Death Toll Racing Tool Review. Vevor reached out to me and they wanted me to review one of their borescopes, endoscopes, inspection camera, whatever you want to call them. Originally I said no, and then I was looking into it just out of curiosity, and I changed my mind. So they sent one out and we're going to review it. But first, I'm going to show you why I didn't want to review it at first, and that's because I already had this one. It's kind of a no-name brand one. It's a Teslong. But it's a really good one, and I really, I really like it. But anyway, it's a cool camera. It has 3 cameras on the end. They all have lights. And it has some attachment tools for the end of it, which are really cool. So this thing's 16.5 foot long, which I really don't need. I've never once used it for that because I use it in an auto shop, not as a plumber or electrician throwing it up conduit or down a pipe. So I don't really use the length of it, and that actually is kind of annoying. But otherwise, it's a really good camera. It has pretty good resolution. You can see very well, has good lighting and all that fun stuff. But the tools are where it's at. Let me show you those things. And here are the tools. One is a hook and one is a magnet. I don't ever use the hook, or I haven't used it yet. But I can imagine there's quite a few scenarios where you would use it. And I just haven't ran into that situation yet. But I use the magnet all the time. So it's basically like a magnet, flexible magnet, for finding a bolt, except it has a camera attached to it so you can actually see where you're going when you're going blind. So instead of just fishing around blindly, you can screw this on the end there and actually use it that way. So it's really cool, and I've used that probably more than anything, but I do send this thing down spark plug holes and everything else to see for cylinder wash or something like that on a piston, or see how well it's burning or whatever. Look for a broken valve, but you can't actually see valves with it very well because you can't turn the head quite enough. All right, so let's use this thing. One thing I'm going to point out that this one does, and that is audio. It's not the greatest. You can hear it in the background there. It's not the greatest, but to have the audio, but maybe in some situations it would be necessary, because maybe you could isolate something visual with an audio noise. I've never actually done that, but it is possible that you would want to do that. But here's how good it works. You can pretty much read the piston, no problem. It's not. You have to be kind of zoomed back a little ways farther than I would like for the camera to focus. I wish it was a little bit closer, but it's not. That was me playing with the lighting on the camera, and I turned it all the way off. I was trying to get it to focus on that 060, so you can see that this engine is 60 over by reading that there. So now looking up at the top, that's using a side camera. That's as far up as I can get it to see, so you can pretty much see the top of the cylinder. But you can't really look at the valves or anything like that. So there's the other camera. Can't quite see. Just looking at the cylinder wall. So this engine still looks pretty good. I mean, it actually went through an engine fire, so I'm surprised as how nice it looks inside. And before we're done with this one, I'm going to show you, it does actually measure out where this is the first time I've ever done that, but it does measure out to be the 16.5 foot. This table is 6 foot. It did that twice, then it went to there, which is about 4.5 feet. All right, and on to the Vevor. So the Vevor, as far as like initial quality, when you pull it out, the screen, this thing, it's very basic. The buttons are not as high a quality as they are on the Teslong, and just being completely honest here on their review, I always do honest reviews, and they know that going in. But at least the pictures on the buttons are what the buttons actually do. So it's definitely a one-up on the Teslong for that. The Teslong takes a little bit of a learning curve to figure out what buttons do what. On this one, it's pretty self-explanatory because it has proper picture on it. All right, and to put the screen on, you literally just clip it on there, and then it just has a release button on it. Not a big deal. But this is what's really cool about this thing. You just turn that dial on the handle and it moves the head around. It's very smooth. It moves very smoothly. So you can be very precise with it. It is so cool, but it goes a full 180 from beyond 180 from what you're doing. You can look at its own cord if that's what you wanted to do, from inside of wherever you're at. So as long as you have room for that thing to turn, it'll turn. The other thing with this thing is the cord on it is very flexible. It's not as stiff as a longer one would be, like the 16.5 foot one on the Teslong. Very stiff cable, but it needs to be, because if you're throwing that thing down a tube, it has to be somewhat stiff. Otherwise, it would just wad up. This one's shorter. It's 3 feet long, so it doesn't need to be as stiff for obviously for not going up really long tubes or whatever. Just like the other one, it has camera, it has video camera, it has 3 different lighting sections. There's only one camera on this one, obviously, because you can move the end. To go from video camera to just snapshots, the only difference is you just press and hold the camera button and it starts recording video. If you just press the camera button once, it takes a picture. So it's pretty easy to stop recording, just press camera button again. Pretty easy. So that button is actually, there's one on the screen and there's also one on the handheld unit. The other button on the handheld unit is the light, so you can adjust the brightness of the light, because sometimes it is too bright and you need to turn it down. It measures right at 3 feet long. All right, enough of that. Let's throw this thing down this engine and see what it can see. So right away, I notice it actually is more clear. I didn't notice it being more clear as I was using it, but on the video recordings, it's definitely more clear than the other one was. You can see it. It helps that it's right side up. You can see the writing a lot more clear. And excuse my jerkiness. I was playing with that, the rotation of that head is just so cool. What you're looking at the top is a valve, and it appears to be open. So, which is pretty cool. So we'll go down a little deeper, and then I'm going to flip it up so that we can see. I'm still pretty close to the valve, but you can see that valve's open. We're actually looking up the valve right there, or up that's the intake valve. We're looking up it, which is kind of cool that you're able to turn that way. Let's flip it around the other way and see if we can't see something a little more clearly. There we go. So there's the spark plug hole in the cable of the camera there, which is pretty cool. Pretty clear. I like that it stays in focus. The close things are in focus and the farther things away are in focus. I don't know what that's called, but it's pretty clear. This combustion chamber is a little oily, more oily than I was hoping to see, but it is pretty good. And you can see the valves there. So this was run on a test stand last on a carburetor that wasn't necessarily tuned. It's just my engine stand break-in stand. And it runs everything pretty rich. So everything does come out kind of looking a little rich. So let's throw this thing down the valve cover and see if we can't see the rockers and everything in here. So some little roller rockers, kind of cheapy steel ones, but they work pretty good. They're actually really strong. So especially for something like this is just a 383 stroker with I think it's the GM hot cam, roller cam. For the late small block Chevy stuff before they went LS. But pretty cool. Pretty clear. It can see down there pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with that thing. That looks pretty cool. So now let's take a look at the inside of this trunk on this Caprice and make sure there's not any bodies in here. Looks like it has about a 4 or 5 body trunk, so it might be a little scary. It doesn't look like we can get into the trunk that way. I thought for sure we'd be able to get through that latch, but I don't see a way through. We'll have to come in another way. We'll try the electrical cord hole. So now we're inside the trunk. That's for the cord to go through for the tail lights and all that fun stuff. I'm not sure what we're looking at there. It must be the floor pan. I don't remember all that globbed up seam sealer on there, but must be. There's the cord, my finger holding the cord. So we were looking 180 back at ourselves. There's no seal on it, so you can see some light coming through. And then you can see the vent line for the fuel cell. And not quite enough light to get some good distance in there, but we can definitely tell that there's no bodies in there, so we're safe. I was a little worried about that. That's usually where I store them. So which is the best? Vevor, Teslong? It's up to you. It's not really apples to apples. But I do want to show one more comparison between the two. 6.37 millimeter, that's right at 1/4 inch. 8.5 millimeter, that's right around 5/16 of an inch. What does that mean? Small block Chevy dipstick tube, pretty standard across the board, diameter wise. Even fits down the taper of the end. Good luck selling me a car that you haven't changed the oil on. No. So that's actually that's really cool. That's points up. I've actually tried that with this one and I already knew that it didn't fit down a dipstick tube. So I was surprised that that one did because they don't look that much different in diameter, but it's enough. So another point for the Vevor. Both charge USB-C, which if it was micro USB, I actually looked into that before I agreed to do the review on it, because if it was micro USB, I would have just stuck with my no, because there's no point. We live in the wrong century for micro USB anymore. That's about it. I like them both. They definitely are both going to stay in my shop. This one will probably permanently have the magnet tool on it because for inspections and diagnostics and all that stuff, I'll definitely be using the Vevor. Video quality is better on the Vevor, especially in the recorded video, and the focus range seems to be longer in the Vevor than it is on this Teslong, which I had to write down the name because I can never remember it. So anyway, my assessment is I'm going to keep them both. You don't have either one and you just need one. Depends what you're going to use it for. If you always drop bolts and you need to retrieve them, this is obviously going to be the better option. If you actually want to use it for inspecting engines and looking down spark plug holes, looking at valves, all that stuff, the Vevor wins that hands down. So it depends what you're going to use it for, or maybe you'll want both. Both of these are in the low $100 range. So I don't want to give an exact price because next week it'll probably change, especially the way things are going now. So anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, and we will see you on the next one.